Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to begin by giving all praise and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. And Shalom to you brothers that are laboring and pushing this word in truth and sincerity and with charity. I'm the brother Abraham from the camp here in GMS Chicago, coming to do another quick lesson through the Holy Spirit. Lord willing, and be edifying. And today, as sundown, it is the feast of Purim. All right, which goes back to the time of Esther. All right, and during the time of Esther, where you have this man Haman or Haman, who had his plot, his wicked inventions to exterminate the Jews. All right, in which at the end of the day, the lot was that Haman and his sons were hanged on the gallows, and Israel was delivered. All right, and what seemed was going to be the execution of the Israelites. All right, and the importance of this is that we find ourselves in a similar situation today. All right, and the scriptures talk about us going through that hour of temptation during the time of Jacob's trouble, a time of trouble that has never been since the world began, based off Daniel's 12th chapter, Jeremiah the 30th chapter. All right, the books of Revelation. All right, there's going to be a trial for the elect of Israel. All right, and a time of tribulation. All right, but the scriptures say that he shall be saved out of it. Right, so we know that there's a remnant and elect who are destined for salvation, who have been predestined for salvation, I should say. And that is our hope. That is our expectation. That is our faith. That is what we hold on to. All right. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and start off with Esther, the third chapter, which goes into Haman's hatred of Mordecai. Okay, so this is Esther chapter 3 and verse 1. It says, "And these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all princes that were with him." All right. Now notice that Ammon is known as an Agagite. All right, and this is important because this is how you link Haman's lineage to Esau Edom. All right, so when you go to the rest of the books of Esther, and I have it here in my hand, so I'm gonna just read it through here. Give me 1 second here. This is second Esther, or the rest of the books of Esther, Salakia. Chapter 16 and verse 10, it says, "For Aman, a Macedonian, the son of Amatha, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood, and far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received of us. Right? So Aman, a Macedonian. Keep that in mind. Okay. From there we're gonna still stay in the rest of the books of Esther 12 and verse 6. It says, Howbeit Aman, the son of Amathus, the Agagite, who was in great honor with the king, sought to molest Mordecai and his people because of the two eunuchs of the king. Alright, so again, Aman, the Agagite, who is also a Macedonian. Alright, and when you go to the book of First Maccabees, the first chapter, and the first verse, it says, And it happened after that Alexander, the son of Philip, a Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, the king of the Persians and Medes, and he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. Alright, so Alexander, we know, is what? Edomite. Okay. And Alexander's lineage goes back all the way to Aman. Alright, the Agagite, who, when you go to 1 Samuel 15, let's go ahead and grab that real quick. 1 Samuel, the 15th chapter. And verse 8, it says, And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. Alright, so what? Aman, the son of Amadatha, the Agagite. Agag, king of the Amalekites. Alright, Amalekites is Esau, Edom. Alright, so these are the Edomites, and this is that perpetual hatred that Esau, Edom has had on Jacob since Cain and Abel, and then from Jacob and Esau. Alright, so there's nothing new under the sun. Alright, so you have Esau, Edom still with his perpetual hatred that he's had since the beginning, still against Jacob, and you can see it to this day. Alright, and now what? They want to get rid of us. More importantly, the prophets, right? Because the scriptures talk about the truth shall be evil spoken of in the last days, and him that departed from wickedness shall make himself a prey. Alright, and that the enemy is going to come down with great wrath, that the enemy is going to come in like a flood. Alright, and most importantly, they're going to attempt to exterminate us, but just like Haman had those wicked inventions against us, that law is ultimately gonna fall upon them. Alright, so continuing on, verse 2, it says, And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Then the king's servants which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath, and he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. And what this scripture reminds me of is also here in Romans, I believe it's 11. In verse 4, it says, But what saith the answer of God unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. And what we have today is we have the elect, the righteous, chosen of the Most High here on earth, that are not going to bow down to Esau Edom, to his image, to his mark, or to his agenda. All right, because now you're seeing him slowly but surely implement this MOTB. All right, which eventually in the near future would be mandatory, would be draconian laws, right? That mark that's written in the book of Revelations. The elect are not going to take it. All right, they're not going to bow to the image of Baal. They're not going to bow to Haman. They're not going to bow to Esau Edom. All right. So, continuing on, this is verse 7. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they called Pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month of Dar. Alright, so Purim, that's what it goes back to, lots, right? And Haman said to King Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the peoples in the provinces of the kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. And you have this a similar situation going on today. We have these certain people who they're not gonna bow to the image of Baal. In other words, we're not gonna bow to their system and their wicked agenda. All right, because we fear Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. We ought to obey God rather than men. All right, and this is when they're gonna seek accusation against us and their wicked inventions against us and seek to destroy us, to slaughter us, as they did during these times. Verse 9, it says, If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have charge of the business, to bring it into the king's treasuries. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it to Haman the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, The silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. Then were the king's scribes called to the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. So they literally wanted to exterminate the Israelites. All right, and there's nothing new under the sun, man. Nothing new under the sun. It's the same spirits back then, today, with their same mindset, same mentality, same spirit. All right. Let's go ahead and grab this in Psalms 83rd chapter, right? We have to, right after reading what we just read in Esther. All right, Psalms 83 verse 1. Keep not thou silence, O God. hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head, and have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Alright, and this is just the same story over and over again, man. Alright. But what we know the scriptures, we know the end game. Alright, and just as the lot for Haman was that he would be hanged on the gallows, and the lot for Israel will be that they will be saved. Alright, but not all of Israel on this side. Alright, eventually all Israel will be saved in the kingdom of heaven. Alright, but this first go around, alright, it's limited seats available. Alright. Right? It says, For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, the tabernacles of Edom, and the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hagarenes. So what? It starts off with who? Esau, Edom. All right. Who was Ammon? Who does Ammon go back to? Esau, Edom. Then it goes on to mention the Ishmaelites, so-called Arabs of Moab, so-called Chinese, Hagarenes, your so-called Africans, right? And then it goes on to list the rest of the nations. All right. So let's go back to Esther, the 3rd chapter. This is Esther 3 and 14. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given to every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out, and being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace, and the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed. So it was a lot going on just at an instant, man. All right, the order to exterminate all Israel. Imagine the fear that all Israel was going to upon the decree. All right, and the rest of the peoples, the rest of the nations, how they might have felt as well. All right, so let's go on to the next chapter. All right, and it goes on to show you the mourning of the Jews. All right, this is Esther 4 and 1. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes, and went out into the midst of the city, and cried with a loud and bitter cry, and came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate with clothed with sackcloth. And in every province whithersoever the king's commandment and the decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting, and weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. And in various instances in the scriptures, you have situations like these, all right, where the nation of Israel would put on sackcloth. They would fast, weep, pray, all right, to put on their state of mourning and humility, and pray to the Heavenly Father for that mercy. All right. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai, and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Hathach, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai to know what it was and why it was. So Attach went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate, and Mordecai told him all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. Also he gave him a copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, and to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king to make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for her help, for her people. And Attach came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again Esther spake to Attach, and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether a man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his, to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. Alright, so put yourself in that situation, man. Anybody who goes into to seek the king who was not called, he should be put to death. Right? Except the king to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter. Alright? And then in a situation where they're already gonna perish, alright, it says verse 12, and they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed, and who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer: Go, gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. Alright, so then this is the courage that is shown of Esther. Alright, it goes to show the faith, alright, and the action that started all through faith. And now we've been in a state of mourning, weeping, fasting, praying, in our captivity, in our time. All right, and like I said, I always gotta mention this because it's it's only the elect, man, that's gonna do it. All right, we can't say that enough. All right, it's only the elect that's gonna do it because it was already installed in them from the beginning. All right, so let's go on to the 5th chapter. We'll see how the Spirit takes us, man. It's almost like we're reading the whole book of Esther, but this is the importance, all right, because it's a feast of happiness, all right, because that was the lot that fell upon us, and affliction shall not arise a second time, man. 1 and 9. What do ye imagine against the Lord? He will make an utter end. Affliction shall not rise up the second time. We're not going back into captivity, man. This is gonna be our last captivity. Alright, then it's gonna be a new time, a new age. Alright, Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followed. Alright, and when you read that 2nd Ezra 6 and 9 in the Spanish Apocrypha, the word for world is siglo, which means an age. Alright, which is what? Ion in the Greek, right? Because we know that in the New Testament there's 3 definitions for the word world in the New Testament, or 3 words for the word world in the New Testament. 3 Greek words, which is ion, oikomene, and cosmos. Ion is what means an age or a time. Alright, oikomene, which means the whole inhabited earth, and then cosmos, a government or an orderly arrangement. Okay, and the scriptures also say in Isaiah that what Israel is a world without end. Alright, and the prophecy in Daniel, the 4 beasts and that statue, when that statue gets destroyed by that stone that is Yahushai, and all these beasts that the lion of the tribe of Judah triumphed over. Alright, after Esau's rulership, it's our time to rule. Alright, and this time we're gonna be perfected. We're gonna be immortal, incorruptible, righteous. Alright, and we're gonna rule forever, and then we will finally be at rest. Then we can finally say happily ever after. Alright, but hey man, it's gonna get a whole lot worse from here on out. There ain't no hope for this place, man. Alright, so let's read this Esther 5. It says, now it came to pass on the 3rd day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, and over against the king's house, and the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, and against the gate of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter, and said the king unto her, what wilt thou, Queen Esther? And what is thy request? It shall be even given thee to the half of the kingdom. Then Esther answered, if it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, cause Haman to make haste, and that he may do as Esther has said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, what is thy position? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed. Then answered Esther and said, my petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king has said. Then went Haman forth that day joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. And Haman He was all happy. He was joyful. Then when he saw Mordecai, his whole his whole spirit changed, man. All right, that's that, man. That's that perpetual hatred they have for us, man. All right. It says, nevertheless, Aman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh his wife. Right, so he holded his he restrained himself from attacking, going after Mordecai. And then he did some plotting, some more scheming. All right. It says, and Haman told them of the glory of his riches and the multitude of his children and all things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes and servants of the king. Haman said, moreover, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared but myself, and tomorrow am I invited unto her also with the king. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the king sitting at the king's gate. So he's he's feeling good about himself because the position that he put himself in, right? And then it seems to him everything seems like it's going great, right? But he still wants to see Mordecai and the Jews dead, man. He don't want to see Mordecai right there, uh, um, at the king's gate, right? So let's go ahead and continue. Yet all this avails me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Then says Zeresh his wife and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon, and then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and caused the gallows be made. So the gallows, right, are being prepared, all right, to kill Mordecai, man. And this was the plan for all the Israelites, all the Jews. All right. So let's go ahead on to the next chapter. All right, this is an important chapter here. All right, this is where Mordecai's deeds are made known. All right, Esther 6:1. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Migdana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hand on King Ahasuerus. And the king said, what honor and dignity had been done to Mordecai for this? And the king said, what honor and dignity hath been done to Mordecai for this? Then said the king's servants and ministered unto him, there is nothing done for him. Right? So Mordecai didn't know of the account when Mordecai pretty much saved the king's life. All right. Two of the king's chamberlains, keepers of the door, right, pretty much were planning a hit on this guy, and he did. The king didn't know about what Mordecai did. And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servants said unto him, behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, what shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, to whom would the king delight to do honor more than to myself. And Aman answered the king, For the man whom the king delights to honor, let the royal apparel be brought which the king uses to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head. And let his apparel and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man withal whom the king delighteth to honor, to bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighteth to honor. So this is what Aman wanted to happen, pretty much. Alright? To put himself in that position, you know, his pride has deceived him. Just as Esau's pride is deceiving him today. Alright. Verse 10. Then the king has said to Haman, Make haste and take the apparel and the horse, as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew, that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken. Damn. It's just like that, the tables turned, right? Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaimed before him, Thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor. Man, this is beautiful. It says that Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house mourning and having his head covered. And Haman told Zeresh his wife and all his friends everything that had befallen him. Then said his wise men and Zeresh his wife unto him, If Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews, before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fall before him. And while they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlains, and hasted to bring Haman to the banquet that Esther had prepared. Ooh, so just like that, the situation's turned, right? Haman thought he was gonna get put on the king's robe and crown and scepter and sit in the king's seat and be taken all throughout the city on horseback to do all of this and do all that. Like he's the man, he's the king, the main one. And then just like that, boom, he did that to the man he hated the most. Imagine that. Alright, hey, it says their kings shall be thy and their and their wives, their your nursing mothers. Alright, they're gonna pretty much serve us, bow to us. Alright, lick the dust of our feet, be our footstool, be our slaves. Alright, because ever since the beginning of time, we've always had one people in power. Alright, and who's in power now? And who's at the bottom? Right, so there's going to be a transition of the people in power. Alright, and this is ultimately the lot of the wicked and the righteous. Alright. Salaki, I'm just reading here in my book. Just want to know how much more I should read, because I know I've been talking for a minute now. All right, so yeah, I guess we could read verse 7. It's a short chapter. um Esther 7:1. So the king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said unto Esther on the second day of the banquet of wine, that is thy position, Queen Esther, and it shall be granted thee, and what is thy request, and it shall be performed even to the half of the kingdom. Then Esther the queen answered and said, If I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, and to be slain, and to be perished. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, Who is he, and where is he that durst presume in his heart to do so? And Esther said, The adversary, the enemy, is this wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. And the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden, and Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Alright, so again, now Haman's deeds have been made known unto the king. Alright, and after what he found out what Mordecai did for him, alright, it says and the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden, and Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Then the king returned out of the palace garden unto the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed thereof, bed whereon Esther was. Then said the king, Will he force the queen also before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbona, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, Behold also, the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who has spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, Hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows, and they prepared for that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's wrath pacified. So now, well, at the end of the day, this is what's the lot for the the wicked and the righteous. All right, let's get a quick precept in Wisdom of Solomon, the 18th chapter. This is Wisdom of Solomon 18:7. So of thy people was accepted both as the salvation of the righteous and destruction of the enemies. For wherewith thou didst punish our adversaries, by the same thou didst glorify us whom thou hast called. Alright, so this is again, and this scripture is specifically talking about the deliverance we had in Egypt. Alright, and the book of 2nd Ezra says that the Most High shall send plagues to Egypt as before. Alright, and that there's a spiritual Sodom in Egypt, which is America. And this lot is gonna fall again to the righteous and to the wicked. Righteous shall be saved, wicked shall be destroyed. Alright, and that's just it. Alright, so this was why we celebrate this day. Okay, and this is a shadow of things to come. right? Shadow of things to come. And we're almost out of here, man. We're gonna be delivered. Lord willing, we're part of that number, man. But that's our faith. That's why we do what we do, man. All right, so with that, I'm gonna go ahead and give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. And until next time, Shalom.